So, like, my curiosity started from the fact that when I came to Lostfunk, I have been a software guy my entire life. So I was very curious about how could one research, what's the particular mindset, and how you actually go about forming hypotheses and then trying to actually do experiments on top of that. So that's been my most of the 8 weeks journey. I will share my insights, what I discovered, and how I move forward, and ultimately how I formed some experiments to basically satisfy my own curiosity. So I'll start this. So yeah, these were some questions that I started out with. So actually, when we think, do we actually think at a language level? Is it always at the language level, or we try to think more conceptually? Like, let's say you let's say a system architect. Do you always try to think at the code level or at the system level? So that's one of the questions that I had. Like, LLMs particularly think in just the language space. We ask a question, they give us a language output. And probably like evolution played a big role in this. And what changed suddenly that we were able to think more abstractly as a species. And like, for example, let's say a rat, it's not thinking like a human, right? So what we did to even think like in a more abstract or concept manner. So these were some of the questions that I had when I started out. So this is like the holy grail of the entire modeling in the LLM game right now. It's a very, what you say, might say basic equation. It's taught in 11th and 12th grade. It's basically you have some prior information and then you try to predict the next information. So let's say the day is sunny. Is it gonna rain? No. So if you fill that sentence, the rain is gonna be preconditioned on the fact that the day out there is sunny. So we might get a rainy out of the LLM. So that's basically the entirety of it. So the main takeaway from here is the LLMs are basically trained to see the previous information and translate it to the next token. So now I'll show you a quick thing that I did with ChatGPT. It's a very basic question you ask. How many words are there in the next sentence you say? And if you actually count the number of words in this sentence, it's more than 8, right? So in some sense, this autoregressive thing is not working out in case of an LLM, right? Because it's not able to look back and change the tokens it had already output. So I would like to say that it can go out there and refactor your entire code base, but it's not able to answer this just one basic question. So now I tried it with the thinking mode. So what does thinking mode do? It takes 37 seconds of thinking, which I think is not required, and it outputs countless tokens, but it gets it correct quite a while. Like, it is able to get it, like, here's a sentence that contains 9 words total, and it actually has 9 sentences, but it had to like output this whole chain of thoughts before actually getting to that. So that's probably very slow and expensive, right? Because we are reasoning in the language space and we are not able to look back on our own inputs, so we are trying to just make up for our mistakes by outputting extra tokens. So this is one of the things that got me very curious. Like, LLMs nowadays are very advanced, but this is something very basic that they should be able to answer. So yeah, that's basically what I said right now. So actually before even coming here, I was very curious about the fact, like, when there is a chain, like a thought thinking UI that's coming up in ChatGPT, what it's actually. So it's nothing, it's basically text only. It's just that the LLM has been trained to output a think tag in the beginning, then it does all its jargon, and then it closes the think tag, and we just see it as a magical thing that the LLM might have done. But under the hood, it's all text tokens that it's outputting. So yeah, trying to diverge from the talk over here. So I just wanted to touch a bit on why reinforcement learning is not working out. So as anyone in the room have had a recent breakup or something? Okay, probably too intimate of a question. So what I would like to say is, let's say you were in a relationship for 5 years and you asked the girl or guy, will you marry me? And they just basically said, let's say, no in this case. How much you have to reflect back on all those 5 years, right? So that's the problem with RL. You can output a lot of tokens, but then you have to ultimately look back at one scalar reward. So RL is probably on a scale on the problems like math and code, but in general, thinking in AGI terms, I think RL has had its time. That's just my opinion. It might be very basic, but that's what I think. So yeah, so one of the analogy that really helped me into even thinking all of this was that how would an actual human being learn? How would our real life experiences be trained by an LLM, and how we can change the loss function, how we can teach the LLM to even think like human beings. So that's where my most of the curiosity came from. So I just want to ask you to take like 15 seconds or maybe 20 seconds and try to solve this in your head. Has everyone found the path?
Yes.
Was it this?
Yes.
So I just have a basic question. How many of you were thinking in your minds that I have to go left, then I have to go right, or you were just like following the trail and going? Were you thinking in language all the time? So that's my entire curiosity where it came for. If we are not thinking in language, why are we forcing the LLMs to think in language? That's probably because we have a lot of internet data to train from, so somehow we have to bootstrap. But now I think we have to move to more advanced techniques where we can actually think in like latent space. So I'll be covering few of these researches that came out recently and what I got out of them. So one recent banger paper that came was hierarchical reasoning models. It was quite a bit in controversy as well. So it's, let's say it's a recurrent network where you have like the latent thoughts being inputted over here, and then the RNN does take the same latent again and again and tries to refine the output and tries to get close to an answer, and then there is a language, there's a head over the end that converts it into the output. So this is basically what hierarchical reasoning models were doing. So what they were able to achieve was in just 27 million parameters and 1,000 training examples, they were able to have a very good result on the ArcAGI benchmark in some of the quiz that they had. So that was a very interesting result, but this paper quite didn't hold up on their claims like why were they using two loops. So their entire reasoning was that, let's say in our brains we have a high level planner that plans the entire thing, and then we have a low level module that actually executes it. So that is what they were attributing their success of this model towards. But when people did ablation studies, they found out that this wasn't quite the case with this. Like even if you remove the external loop of the higher planner, it still works out quite well. So that's one of the findings, and if you see, it's very similar to how a diffusion based model would work. So if you have a noisy latent, you pass it to the model, then it generates a less noisy image. So yeah, that's how basically a diffusion-based model would work. It would take a noise and then completely conditioned on the text, generate an output. So if you think in a way, this is how also humans also think. We have a basic idea in our mind, and then we try to go and out there and refine until we get to a proper result. So a lot of people have been trying to do this with language tasks as well. So if you see, I'll just quickly go over. So these are all the independent tokens that are present in the beginning. This already has a prompt and the answer to this. So this is basically the training stage. And so there's a way we mask the tokens randomly throughout. And then there's a mask predictor, which is basically trying to predict what's the best token that could fill these particular spots over here. And then to do some instruction fine tuning, it just does this same process for the response. And for the inference, that's very interesting. If you see, when we are trying to infer from these diffusion models, I send these empty tokens in the response place, and then the mask predictor tries to predict the tokens that would come over here. And then I remask these tokens again and then try to get it back. So in a way, now the LLM is able to look back to its token and try to refine more of its previous answers in this architecture. And how do they do it very efficiently is, let's say, whenever you are outputting a token from an LLM, it has like a probability distribution. Like let's say the day out there is sunny, it's probably not gonna rain. So it's a very confident answer, but a lot of cases the LLM is not very confident when it's putting out a token. So that's how they do it. For the less confident tokens, they mask it again and then they send it to the mask predictor. So now it's able to look back to its answers as well. So yeah, this is also a very interesting paper. I think Paras also had this in his talk, where he talked about like most of the LLMs just think in English and their performance degrades across languages, right? But if you say like, if I say it in Hindi, yaar wahan pe do bacche baithe hain, and if I say it in English, there are two kids sitting over there. So there, at the concept level, there is no differentiation in between these two sentences, right? So we should not be training the LLM on the English tokens, rather at a concept level, like where they understand whether that thing, two kids sitting over there, is not explicitly said in the language itself. So this is one of the cool papers that came out of Meta. So how do they basically make these concepts? It's very interesting, I'll tell you. So previous to this in 2018, they had this research called Sonar, which is basically doing some machine translation. So what they did for this particular thing is they would embed an English sentence to an embedding space and also a corresponding Hindi pair sentence with this and try to embed them in the same embedding space. So basically now this encoder has captured the nuances between the languages and is able to have a embedding that is uniform across the languages. So, and now they use this particular embedding to train like a transformer based model in between and get the output out of these. So it's a very cool way of like seeing how people are trying different ways to make this better and try out different things as well. So now I'll come to what I quite explored around with. So this is one of the research where they were training a large language model to think in continuous latent space. So like right now what we do in like autoregressive manner, we output one token, then send it again in the input embedding, and then output again, and then send it again. So instead of doing this chain of thought thinking in the token space itself, so once you get a token out of an LLM and you basically attribute a word to it, then you have lost all the information that the LLM previously had while it was picking out that token. So what they're trying to do is instead of picking out a word token over here, they're just sending the last hidden states as input embeddings for the chain of thought. So what they found out was that it was able to better model some of the problems that were not getting modeled in like a language space. So this particular embedding space that you see over here, they call this a chain of continuous thought. It's basically a, like when you attribute a token from an LLM, it has a vector associated with it. It's not continuous in that way. It's a discrete vocabulary that a LLM has. But over here, it's not constrained to that vocabulary. It can basically think in continuous manner that autoregressive model wouldn't be able to think. So that's where I came in like last 2 weeks of Lost/Funk. So I designed like quick 3 experiments for me to experiment with this model. So one was like if we extend the chain of thought reasoning in the continuous space, does the model's output get better? So what I found out was like even after 2 thought tokens, the performance starts to go down. So that was one of my findings. So I have 2 more experiments lined up. One is feedback via middle representations. So rationale over this is like, let's say right now when the information is flowing from the bottom layers of transformer to the upper layers of the transformer, it's getting enriched in a different manner, and when it gets to the output of the transformer, it's more aligned with the language space, so it's losing out a lot of enrichment that happened in the middle. So that's one of the experiments that I wanted to perform, where I would just supply the middle representation from the transformer and send it back to the input layer of the transformer while it's generating the next token. So this is one of the experiment that I'm yet to do. And third was studying the effect of reinforcement learning in latent space. So like right now I'm talking about these latents are in a continuous space, but do they actually have any language meaning associated with it? So if you see over here, if you try to like project these continuous thoughts into language space back, you do get some of the information out of those. So like let's say 3 into 60, it's 180. So it has some confidence for the word 180. So I'm trying to see how reinforcement learning will try to make this latent space, and will the language model still try to think in English, or will they try to think in some other manner? So this is one of the experiments that I want to do. So this is probably my last slide. So things that struck was research is equal part conviction and delulu. So you have to be very convicted towards the problem that you don't even know exists, and then be delusional enough to keep doing that for quite a long. So it has been 6 weeks for me. It has been interesting, but that's one of my main findings. And obviously having high agency people around you, like the people we have in Lost/Funk, it's absolutely amazing. Like Biraj is building something out of scratch every new week. These guys are building something new in AI payment space. So it's very nice to have people around you who are achieving the unknowns and being in that space. And the third is that I would encourage everybody in this room that since now the barrier knowledge to barrier has like gone down to 0 with AI, we should all be experimenting with something new every day and try out the hard things we thought were very difficult before. So these are some of the images from my batch. Somebody added a 6-9 over here, I don't know who. I wouldn't name. And so we had quite a fun in our weekly meetings. Thanks to Paras, Saurabh and Sai, they facilitated all of this wonderfully, and I really loved the time I spent with them. And obviously, Indranagar has great views. So just come here for the views, guys. It's amazing. So that's it.